Hello everyone, and welcome, or welcome back to my channel. This is a walkthrough of the Operation Mechagon dungeon on level 14 from the point of view of my Oracle Discipline Priest. The point of this video is to sort of look at the general healing challenges in this dungeon, of which there are a few, and discussing strategies or ideas for how Oracle Priest can deal with those challenges. Keeping in mind though that I too have only recently started playing this spec, so my play by no means is perfect, but this shall not prevent us from looking at potential mistakes I have made from a healing perspective and trying to find out how things could be improved, and just generally reviewing the gameplay in this key. Now we decided to pull all the mobs together in the beginning. You will find some random groups, which this one is, doing so, and some not doing so. I personally don't have a clear preference. I think if it's a resilient keystone, it makes a lot of sense to try the first pull. If it doesn't work out, just try again. Otherwise, there is some additional risk being introduced. And then it basically comes down, do you want to take the risk? Do you have the DPS in the group to be able to time the key without the risk easily? You always want to have some leeway, I suppose. But you don't usually know that beforehand either, unless you are very careful to invite, for example, only people with very good passing. So we managed to do that just fine, and we pull the first boss. As a healer, this is a very easy boss. The main thing which you need to be concerned with is the ground pound from the Platinum Pummeler, which does a moderate amount of AoE damage, but if you are used to healing the pulsing AoE on other encounters in this season, for example on Big Mama from Floodgate, then the damage put out by the Platinum Pummeler is low and should not require the use of any cooldowns. And that's actually also the point I want to make about this boss fight from a perspective of an Oracle Priest. Do not use your Premonition of Clairvoyance. You can see it's I have it available now, and my plan is to not use it because the pulls that are happening after this boss fight are very dangerous and require you to have your healing cooldowns ready. Arguably, maybe you could cycle through an additional set of premonitions to just barely get clairvoyance back online when the next pulls happen, but it's not a risk I want to take. As you can see, our hunter gets absolutely shredded by all of the blades in the middle of the arena, so side note, don't stand in the exact middle of the arena where all the blades, which usually don't do a lot of damage, intersect and then kill you. Yeah, that was certainly a sort of questionable decision, but he gets a combat res and we are fine. However, the confusion that this produced also led me to using my Premonition of Clairvoyance, which was a mistake, but I don't think it was really necessary, but in this moment I thought, okay, better safe than sorry, and I used it. So that will reduce the amount of available healing that I have in the next pulse, which might produce some problems. One final thing about this boss fight, which I have been doing at some points in the fight, but not enough, I would say, is I think as a healer who does not get targeted by the mines on the ground, so the DPS have to put the mines on the ground, or the bombs, and the healer never does have to do it unless there are no other ranged DPS in the group. So as a healer, I would like myself standing over here in front of the boss towards the direction where the tank is kiting the boss. The one advantage of this is you will always have your team running towards you, never away from you. And the other advantage is that if you get knocked back, if you make a mistake, if you get hit by the blades, you are never at risk of hitting one of the bombs, which will kill you instantly. So, for future reference, I will try in this boss fight to stand in the direction toward the tank is running with the boss. Okay, now the first boss is dead. It's a rather uneventful event. and the trash pulls afterwards begin. You have the waste processing unit, which casts a large AoE called Megadrill, and you then have the Metal Gunk, which casts an AoE healing absorb. And you can see the spell sequencing is organized in such a way that the Metal Gunk and the Megadrill, the Corrosive Gunk and the Megadrill go off at the same time. And you can see there's big pulsing AoE damage stacked together with the healing absorb. This is why I want to have my premonition of Clairvoyance ready, because Clairvoyance will then cycle into Insight, which I just used to heal the first set of this damage. So these are your two most powerful premonitions, and I would have to want to have them available in sequence. You can see it's happening again. Megadrill and Corrosive Gunk stacked on top of each other, and the Druid just barely survives. I probably should have committed my 1.5 minute cooldown here, of which I've sadly forgotten the name right now, which would have healed us and have made us be more safe. I suppose maybe I wanted to hold it because I know the same thing is going to happen again, and I will need something for that as well. But anyway, you can prevent this nasty overlap from happening by interrupting or stunning, for example, the Metal Gunk Corrosive Gunk cast. So if you knocked back the Metal Gunk right now while he's casting, then you would interrupt it. And what you want to do with these interrupts, so it's not interruptible in terms of being kicked, but it's interruptible in terms of being stunned or knocked back and so on. What you want to do is prevent the Metal Gunk Megadrill, the Megadrill going off at the same time as the Corrosive Gunk. As unfortunately I let our hunter die, I think I already checked it in the log, he healed himself for quite a bit there with a defensive. That was definitely my mistake, and maybe I should have pain subbed him in the beginning, or should have just generally planned this better. I suppose I could also go in and fear the Corrosive Gunk when the cast is going off during the Megadrill window. So this is how I could have taken perhaps matters into my own hand to be able to diffuse the situation. Again, you can see Corrosive Gunk is going out, and now also the Megadrill cast begins. This is still fine, unless this Corrosive Gunk also goes through, then it becomes dangerous again. But okay, the Megadrill cast is already over, so it's not that bad. So the really bad overlap is when both Corrosive Gunks and the Megadrill are happening at the same time, because then your healing will do effectively nothing. But you could see that my Clairvoyance came back up, so what I didn't have in the beginning I then had in the end, which is not so bad. You can also see here that I play the Bursting Lightspawn Trinket, and against how it should usually be handled, I let it die immediately. So usually you'd want to shield it, apply atonement to it, and then the pulsing AoE of the Lightspawn will last for as long as it's alive. And if you can keep it alive for the whole 20 seconds, then it will do a lot of damage. And the damage really is something that Oracle Priest struggles with a lot. But I want to excuse myself a little bit, because these junkyard dogs are quite dangerous, even though as a priest you have an excellent kit available to you to deal with them, because you have a Master Spell. So these 4 dots on our team would have been much more dangerous on any other healer, except for maybe Monk with Revival, than they are on my priest. And we were also lucky then that there were no double stacks on individual players. In terms of a dispel strategy, I would suggest dispelling on cooldown. So okay, that it's on the hunter, my dispel is ready, and now I don't. Okay, now I dispel myself, I guess. But yeah, generally I would suggest dispelling on cooldown. Another strategy could be dispelling whenever you have 2 stacks on one player, because then it becomes really dangerous. 1 stack you can heal rather well, but then if there are no 2 stacks on players, then everybody is taking damage and you have not prevented any of it. So yeah, it's a bit it's a bit tricky, but I think the Dispel on cooldown thing is better, and then commit your pain sub, for example, when someone actually does get 2 stacks. Now this boss is very uneventful. He casts the Blazing Chomp on the tank. It needs to be dispelled, does a lot of group damage. Then you have a pretty high amount of time to get the group back up before these jumps come out. You can pre-shield the players who are being targeted, and then it's not a lot of damage. And then the boss casts Venting Flames. And you can see the boss is standing inside of the box. So without the weak aura, I'd probably be dead right now. Can also tell that our DK probably doesn't have the weak aura, this hence while he is lying in a puddle of his own blood. Yeah, so ideally the tank would position it a little bit more clearly, and then if you have the weak aura, you can usually also stand at a safe spot while still being able to see and damage the boss, which is relatively important given that this boss fight takes a long time. Although, that being said, for the healer, it's not that important, I suppose, especially if you're a low DPS healer such as Oracle Priest. Yeah, we're going to skip ahead a bit, because really nothing else is going on in this boss fight, and nothing else will go on in this boss fight. And yeah, it's not a particularly insightful conversation which is left to be had there. Now after the boss, you sort of go through this yeah, labyrinth-esque role-playing segment on the conveyor belt. Yeah, people may die here, or they may not. If they do, it's not good. Yeah, and then you have this next pack, which is deceptively dangerous, because these little boys cast the Zap cast, which does a lot of damage on higher key levels, Giga Wallop, and ideally they are being interrupted and stunned and so on. And if that is being done correctly, then essentially the pack doesn't do anything, and you can just focus on dealing damage to it. So yeah, I would say up to this point, there was only one really challenging part in the dungeon, which are the trash pulls after the first boss. And I suppose the first pull, because it has a relatively high variance in terms of it's either a relatively easy success or it's a disaster. And we managed to do fine. So here you have the defense bots. You see they are different versions, so to speak. You have the MK1, which doesn't do anything, and then, or I guess they cast the debuff on individual players, and then you have the MK3, which does a pulsing AoE damage called Short Out, which does quite a lot of damage, and you should ideally prepare for it, for example, by having your Radiance already applied to the individual players beforehand, and then casting your penance immediately when Short Out happens. Also, don't be afraid to commit your cooldowns here. There is one additional damage event happening next when a tank spawns after this pull, but after that you will not need your cooldowns for a long time, so you can essentially blow through all of your cooldowns in this room, should that ever be needed. Here is the Blastertron tank, which does a relatively high amount of pulsing AoE damage. You can see when the rockets are flying out. And you can heal it. I think I've just committed my Premonition of Insight. I will probably end up committing my Premonition of Piety as well. And essentially you just dodge these casts and do a bit of damage while this is going on, and just keep the group topped. So again, we're going to skip ahead a little bit, because this fight again is relatively uneventful. Afterwards you have this little labyrinth going on, where you need to dodge these detector bots. If you are in the smoke, you are invulnerable, so to speak, you can't be detected. One of our players, who was it, the Hunter I think, just got hit here. And essentially what you want to do is hide in the smoke here in the front until there is a gap, You can also run through now. If the whole team was here now, I probably would also have tried to run through. But since the tank is standing on top of me, there's no need to take the risk. Because if the tank isn't there, we are not going to pull anyway. So I try to minimize this risk by also not trying to squeeze the gap, so to speak. Okay, now I would like to see myself use my light spawn trinket. I'm really not that familiar. Yes, yeah, okay, there it is. You can see I spawn my light spawn. I have it macroed to be instantly focused. I have the focus frame right here. And now I would want to be able to keep it alive for the whole 20 seconds. You can see I have 6 seconds remaining of its potential lifetime. And yeah, I managed to do that, and you can see I did about 1 million DPS, which, believe it or not, for an Oracle Priest is quite substantial. And this trinket, if done correctly, may account for around 30 to 40% of your damage at the end of the dungeon. We can I have actually logged it, we can check what it actually did in the end. Putting a disclaimer on it, however, that my use of the trinket was not so good. Because I'm not that familiar with the spec yet, I rather focus on keeping the group safe, and healing and damage optimization will come after the optimization of my healing processes. Now again, and here it's probably even more important than after the first boss, you can see I am sitting on my premonition of clairvoyance. Maybe I could have timed it in such a way that I wouldn't start the fight with clairvoyance, but maybe I would start the fight with piety. Then I can use 2 premonitions in the boss fight as I get hit by the saw blade. And then I could use some for some shielding and some additional healing, which it's not really necessary. If people don't get hit, there's nothing to heal on this fight. But as it is, I have clairvoyance available. And this means that I have insight available afterwards. So I have my two biggest healing premonitions ready, and I will keep it at any cost. So I will not panic press clairvoyance on this encounter, because then the subsequent double tank pull becomes exponentially more challenging. And we're going to move ahead a bit. Yeah, it's just dodging. Did we have a death actually? That would be kind of interesting to see. Okay, 3, so not yet. And hold on. Yeah, still at 3. Yeah, it doesn't seem like we had a death on this encounter, so that's a positive, I suppose. Okay, and now comes the sort of the main event of the dungeon in terms of a healing check. It's the double tank pull. You can see our DH procced actually on the boss, so as always the tank, right? So he runs up, and you can see we drop low immediately. I commit my premonition of clairvoyance and shoot out 3 penances immediately after having applied the power word radiance. The DK puts down his anti-magic barrier, and I put out the dome right now. So at this point, I have my premonition of insight triggered right now, and with that we are safe for a little bit longer. Now one of the tanks is dead, so essentially we are already well through it, because now it's very, very easy to heal, but I still have my ultimate penitence available. And damn, I should really know what this is, what this spell is called, angelic something or so. I'm not really sure, but it's essentially also a big bursty AoE group heal, which I could still use. But if you do it like this, you have a lot of leeway in terms of being able to heal the encounter for an extended period, because you have your 2 most powerful premonitions going into it. And as you don't need the healing on the 3rd boss, I would strongly advise to always cycle in such a way that clairvoyance is available upon leaving the boss room. Now to the last section of the dungeon. You can see the technicians put up this shield. You would always want to stand in the shield, because you have the MK3 defense bots casting their their short out, which is a big pulsing AoE damage. And actually you can see I left the shield, I had the debuff, I had the short out happening at the same time, and I died. And this is really due to my lack of experience, I think, with a Disciplined Priest. I had my Desperate Prayer available, I still had a Pain Sub, I had my healing potion, I had various ways to save myself, and I didn't do so because there, yeah, you have like one global or so time to be able to save yourself, and if you don't know what exactly to press in which situation, then it's much more difficult. So on my Evoker, for example, I know exactly what to do. Not only from Mythic Plus, but it's sort of been bred in the fire of the arena. And so so there's this neurally networked or neurally wired processes going on. And you can see I'm really underprepared here for the short out. Luckily it's just one bot. I did not have my atonement on the team, and neither did I have my penance available, so that usually shouldn't happen. Especially in the next pull, where you have two of the bots. Here they want me to soothe. I sort of fail to do it because you have to jump up, otherwise there's no line of sight, and we do a soothe skip on the spec. For extra safety you can always use Fade in these situations, which will reduce your effective aggro range even further. And we pull the last pack of the dungeon, which are two of the MK3 defense bots, so the shield here is actually very important. DPS players should take care to focus one of the bots and not put overly much cleave damage on the technician. And what's especially important is that the technician does not die before he puts down his second shield. So you can see there's a second shield. And the short out cast will be going on again. I already prepare, I see them sort of dying at the same time. I kind of prepare for having to heal a double short out when the shield disappears. But you can see that I have activated my premonition of clairvoyance. Here too, might be a good idea to have clairvoyance and insight available just to be extra safe. And now when the next short out comes, I probably won't even be anymore. So I didn't even need my premonition of insight. We pull the boss, which is, I would say it's a pretty easy boss. All of the bosses in this dungeon are actually pretty easy, but that being said, it is probably the hardest in this dungeon, simply because of the potential for failure upon each and every swap of these little lightning coils, which are put on the ground, floating in the air. But yeah, the first phase essentially is just dodge the swap of the lightning coils, don't stand in the center of the room, makes it extra difficult, try to move toward the edges somewhere, where you can usually always dodge quite easily, because in the center this is usually where the coils will intersect, and it can be somewhat difficult to find out which one is going where in the short time that you have to assess this. Yeah, I'll skip ahead a little bit here because essentially there's almost nothing to heal. Also, if the boss sometimes goes up into the air, yeah, it does some pulsing AoE damage, but it's nothing to write home about. And then comes phase 2. It's usually the third last of the dungeon, and you basically want to deal as much damage to the boss as possible. And then as a healer, I would say it makes sense to play somewhat further back in the room. On the one hand, this makes it a bit less crowded for the melee players at the front in terms of the lightning coils. On the other hand, you can bait the magneto arm, which you can see coming up, towards the rear of the room, and the closer you are, the more damage the magneto arm will do to individual players. So if you're standing farther back, it will spawn further back, and you can see the pulsing AoE from the magneto arm is pretty low here. Now this is a bit of a scary moment. I am sort of caught in the middle of these transitions, but I do manage to get it, to dodge it. Yeah, and you can see I have my cooldowns available still. and we just try to DPS the boss down. One thing that I would note is that this fight takes a long time. So you can see, I think we started the boss fight with around 4:30 or something. But don't check it. Don't take my word for it. Or yeah, it might be wrong. But anyway, we had quite a bit of time. But it will be very close for us to be able to time it, and we certainly cannot afford anyone to die right here. So you can see the next Magneto arm is coming up. He throws it more towards the rear of the room. I just use my ultimate penitence here because it's a pretty easy way to be able to deal with the AoE damage. It's sort of a push it, press it, and don't think about it anymore button, which in a situation like this one, where there's a bit of mental load going on due to the orb transitions, that's always a welcome sight. Note that if you're standing in the corner over here where I was just standing, not all of your teammates from the melees might be in line of sight, because this big column blocks me from seeing them. So ideally move a bit back towards the center whenever you can, in order to be able to heal all of your teammates should they need it. Yeah, now you can see it's really quite close. We have only 20 seconds left and the boss still hasn't dropped out. Keep in mind that when he drops we still need to kill King Mechagon. And with the timer ticking down from 8 seconds, it's quite close. I tried to do damage. I should have used my clairvoyance actually. As you can see, the timer hits 0 and we still time it. So good to know that when the timer is 0, it doesn't mean that it is already over. It means that the last second has begun. And also good to know a key which is timed exactly on the second of the timer gives 3000. No, sorry, that's just my overall score. How much score did it actually give?
4.
Actually, I would have to look it up, I suppose. Never mind then. What I want to do in the end is just briefly, oops, that's the wrong button, look at the log of this fight. You can see here that my damage log is not particularly good, but I also play Oracle Priest, which obviously does a lot worse than Void Weaver does, which in terms of damage, which means that your logs will naturally be deflated. If we click on my damage breakdown, we can see that my Bursting Light Shard actually did quite a bit of the damage, as now my coffee maker is also going on. So yeah, it's not the best outro I could have conceived, but there's certainly some way to optimize this. So in other dungeons, this can very well go over 100,000 DPS. And I could also have taken better care of being able to make sure that it doesn't die. From a healing perspective, I did reasonably well. As a Oracle Priest, you should always see that your Power Word Shield does the most amount of healing. It's an ability you'd usually want to press on cooldown. Yeah. So yeah, I'm still sort of learning the spec, but comparing it with Preservation Evoker, I really must say it's very easy to do a lot of healing without needing a PhD in order to be able to do it. So from that perspective, I'm really surprised how simple it is as an Oracle Priest to put out huge amounts of healing, whereas as an Evoker you really need to think about each and every one of your globals. That's not to say that Oracle Priest does not have any nuance to it. And I think especially the timing of the premonitions is important there. Okay guys, that does it for this video. If you liked it, like it. If you really liked it, give me a subscription. I will very much appreciate it, and I'm going to do a lot more of this kind of content also on higher key levels, and also want to do some more general guides for healers in this game. And yeah, help me stay motivated, I suppose. And even if not, thanks for watching and see ya.